So there.
So there.
So there.
So there.
Let me know your thoughts.
So there.
So there.
So there.
Let me know your thoughts.
Why do you keep saying let us know your thoughts?
Let me know your thoughts to me is a nice lead-in for So There. So There.
Welcome to episode 56 of
So There.
I'm Gary Doyle.
And I'm Tom Karamitis.
Tom, how are you today? Kind of a bleak weekend?
Kind of a
weather-wise.
bleak late April weekend, reminding us again how we have an unfavorable climate in Chicago, but then again, that's what makes it the city more affordable. It's it's not a destination for climate lovers.
Yes, that is true. If it had weather like Los Angeles, we'd have. I think the weather here kind of has a way of weeding out the a-holes.
Explain.
Well, I think a lot of the a-holes will go somewhere where the weather's nice, like Florida or California, just because, they want life to be easy. But Chicago kind of, I think, weeds out some of those folks. So it's not to say there's not a-holes here. There are. But, I think it weeds out some of them. And so you end up with people that are a little bit more, normal stock, I guess.
Interesting, because I always thought you, for the longest time, used to bemoan the weather here.
Yeah.
So, but you're kind of giving Chicagoans kind of a bit of a badge of honor for enduring it.
Yeah, I still bemoan the weather. I still can't stand it, but I do think it has a weeding out effect. Somebody sent me a thing the other day. I just was looking it up. This is kind of funny. Chicago actually has 12 seasons, Tom.
12?
Are you ready?
Yes.
That's what Trump used to say. Are you ready? 12 seasons. Here we go. Winter, Fool's Spring, second winter, Spring of Deception, third winter, the Pollinating, actual spring, summer, Hell's Front Porch, false fall, second summer, actual fall.
What is Hell's Front Porch supposed to mean?
That's the height of summer. August.
Okay, 91 and humid. Yep.
Fool's Spring, Spring of Deception. We're either in the spring of deception now or the third winter. Speaking
of the seasons, I learned something thanks to something you talked about in a previous pod when you were talking about some of these how the car dealers have these kind of events that they proclaim, but no one really ever knows about them except the car dealers. I learned via television commercial that apparently April is Ford Truck Month. I did not know that. I went to work the next day and asked my coworkers, "Hey guys, are you aware? April's Ford Truck Month." Nobody knew. I wonder if you go to a Ford dealership, if they even know at the dealership that April is Ford Truck Month.
You should walk into a Ford dealer and say, "Hey guys, what month is this?" And they'll go, "April." No. What month is April? Ford Truck Month, you doofuses. What are you, stupid? Then you walk out.
Take my business elsewhere. Find another Ford dealer who'll give me the monthly discount that apparently Ford Truck Month would offer everybody. Huge discount if you just mention that April is Ford Truck Month.
And you tell them that Brian Erlich listened to.
Well, in this episode, we were talking about introducing a new feature, which is it's kind of related to something we did on the very early episodes of So There. And by early episodes, I'm talking about, at this point, 5 years ago, when we used to take apart songs and quote bad lyrics. But I think one of the things we're going to do now is we wanted to kind of introduce not just bad lyrics, but perhaps lyrics that are memorable for one reason or another, and get into a little, how you say, kind of academic song analysis. And I wanted to kick things off. Are you game for this exploration, Mr. Doyle?
Yeah, did you say exploration or sexploration?
Well, it depends on the song. In this case, it's probably a little of both.
Sure, let's give it a whirl.
All right. I wanted to quote one of my all-time favorite lyrics from the great and late Mr. Loaf, Meat Loaf. His lyrics are written by Jim Steinman, but this was always one of my favorite lyrics in any song, and I did a little bit of a deep dive into the song itself, and it's an interesting song. The lyric I'll quote to you is from 2 Out of 3 Ain't Bad, and the lyric is, I want you, I need you, but there ain't no way I'm ever gonna love you. Now don't be sad, 'cause 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Yeah, and I just thought it was absolutely brilliant. Every time I hear it, I laugh, because it makes me think that the rest of the song is going to kind of be kind of a cold, bitter jettisoning of a relationship. But in reality, when I started diving a little more into the song, it's actually a pretty sad song. It's and it has an interesting twist at the end. But basically, the song is about two people. And apparently the singer Jim, Meat Loaf, and the woman he's with, they can't come to terms on the level of relationship they're having, which culminates in that memorable verse. But as the song progresses, you find out towards the end that this memorable verse, I want you, I need you, there ain't no way I'm ever going to love you, now don't be sad, 'cause 2 out of 3 ain't bad. That was something that the only woman the singer ever really loved, right? She said that to him, right? So now he's returning the favor in his current relationship. I'll read that section where the song turns a little bit. He says, now there's only one girl I'll ever love, and that was so many years ago. And though I know I'll never get her out of my heart, she never loved me back, I know. Well, I remember how she left me on a stormy night. Oh, she kissed me and got out of our bed. And though I pleaded and begged her not to walk out that door, she packed her bags and turned right away. And she kept on telling me, and then it goes again, I want you, I need you. And all of a sudden I thought to myself, that's kind of a sweet song, when all I really used to remember about the song was that brilliant but crass verse. It kind of did a little turn with me yesterday when I did a little research on the song. So there.
Well, I mean, it's an operatic kind of lyric. Meat Loaf's songs were operatic. And I also think, I think that hearing you talk about it, I think that Mr. Loaf, and by the way, the New York Times will call subjects of any story, after they refer to them for the first time, like Tom Karamitis, after that you'll be Mr. Karamitis. So when Meat Loaf was popular and they'd review Meat Loaf, they would actually call him Mr. Loaf after the first reference to Meat Loaf. Yes, Mr. Loaf deals in operatic. Yeah. But I think that, I think of that lyric, and then I think of, his other famous song, Paradise by the Dashboard Light. And at one point in that, he says, I'm going to love you till the end of time. And then says, and now I'm praying for the end of time. After they, consummate things. So I think considering all that, maybe Mr. Loaf has intimacy issues. Maybe he fears intimacy. What do you think?
Yeah, of course, it's hard to separate Mr. Loaf from Mr. Steinman.
Right.
And I made the mistake. I made a comment recently on a chat board about a lyric in a Carpenter song, and knowing the tragic story of Karen Carpenter, I quoted a lyric that she sang, which seemed to really summarize what she was going through in her later life. And somebody jumped all over me and said, "She didn't write her own lyrics, dude." And I said, "Yeah, I'm thank you. I'm well aware of that, but still, it's very hard to separate the lyricist from the singer. In this case, Meat Loaf was not a singer-songwriter; he was a singer, but the words are still coming out of his mouth." Anyway, I didn't answer your question, and at this point, I've forgotten what your question was.
So have I. Karen Carpenter, did she not write any of her lyrics? Because her lyrics are very sad. She is a sad... So I just figured she wrote them.
I don't think she wrote any of her lyrics. The songs I was familiar with, they always had outside writers. She was quite the accomplished drummer. I always found her backstory so fascinating because for years she didn't sing. She sat in the background playing drums. And here's somebody that I think a lot of people acknowledge as one of the great voices of our generation, and she didn't really start singing until later on. I mean, her brother Richard was always seen as the musical genius in the family, and she was, kind of given, the back of the hand for a long time. When you mentioned the New York Times referring to somebody as Mr. after the first mention of their full name, it made me think of Prince in the 1990s when he decided he wanted to just be known as that symbol. Remember?
Glyph.
Yeah, and then, much to his chagrin, the music industry started referring to him as AFCAP, artist formerly known as Prince, and apparently that drove him nuts. That's exactly what he didn't want. So there.
Tom, another song that has hidden meaning that I learned. I was lucky enough a few years ago to record tracks, and sorry for the flex here, but I recorded tracks for a commercial at Abbey Road in London, of course, where the Beatles recorded Abbey Road. And, amazing experience, of course. One thing I learned there, and this may be an apocryphal story, but it was an interesting story, is in Abbey Road there's a cafe where you can go and eat and get a coffee or whatever or the artists go, and then outside of that is a little courtyard. It's sort of a courtyard, beautiful little courtyard surrounded by the building, kind of an enclosed courtyard. And somebody told me that George Harrison wrote "Here Comes the Sun" in that courtyard. And I don't know if you've ever heard this story, but "Here Comes the Sun," so think of the lyrics to that. Little darling. It's been a long, cold, lonely winter. It's been years since it's been clear, here comes the sun. So he wrote that. So they recorded Abbey Road, and they were all fighting, and it was just the relationships were brutal between them, he and the other Beatles, and Yoko was in the sessions and all that, and it was toxic. And so he went out into this courtyard, and it was a rare sunny day in England. He went into this courtyard and wrote this song about that. That was about those relationships. It's been a long, cold, lonely winter. It's been years since it's been clear. And then interesting, he wrote that about that, what they were going through at the time.
Didn't he, did he write that with Eric Clapton?
I know of.
The story I'd always heard was
Harrison's song.
Yeah, it was, but I'd always heard he'd written it in Eric Clapton's backyard or something. That there was but I could be mistaken. But you're probably right. I don't think Eric Clapton is credited as a co-writer on that song. So maybe it was Eric Clapton's house or something. but you heard it was in the courtyard at Abbey Road Studios.
I think not sure, but maybe what you're confusing is, the song Layla was written by Eric Clapton about George Harrison's wife. He was in love with George Harrison's wife and couldn't do anything about it because she was married to George Harrison. But he had this mad, insane crush on her. I don't know. Maybe that's what you're talking about. Maybe that's a story they just tell of advertising rubes like me at Abbey Road.
What were you recording at Abbey Road?
We were recording for Edward Jones. We wanted to use the song Bob O'Reilly.
Mm-hmm. The Who.
In The Who. And so it was one of those deals where we brought in studio session musicians to recreate the song, to make it sound exactly like Bob O'Reilly, because we could not afford the original Bob O'Reilly track. So the people that recorded it wanted to use Abbey Road because it had that old kind of studio vibe. And Abbey Road, they actually wanted to record it where Bob O'Reilly was originally recorded, called Olympic Studios, which is now closed in London. So they went to Abbey Road. And Abbey Road is about 6 or 7 studios. It's a big complex. But we recorded in the studio where the Beatles recorded Abbey Road. There's these pictures of the stairway that goes up from the studio to the mixing booth. Mixing booth is above, like looking down on the studio. It's kind of a weird setup. But we recorded in that studio. And yeah, it was pretty trippy. Life memory.
That's incredible. That's a to do that kind of trip is one of those times when you're thankful you're in the business you're in. Like, look what I get to do in my job. I get to go to London, go to Abbey Road, and record a music track at Abbey Road. That's yeah.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, we've all had this experience of working with, incredible cinematographers or directors or music people that have gone on to win Oscars, and the talented people and the places you get to do things at in production are they're incredible. I never take it for granted. So there.
Little palate cleanser here mid-pod, and I thought that maybe the trend was dying. I thought maybe the noun as verb thing had run its course, because I wasn't really hearing very many. But then yesterday, SeatGeek, so fans can fan.
Oh no, Tom. This shows no sign of dying. No. This is I saw one the other day too. I forget, but it is, if anything, only growing. Yeah.
Well, this wasn't really this next one wasn't really a noun as verb, but there was an Infinity commercial on that had a tagline that was incomprehensible to me. So I wanted to offer it up to you to see if you can help me with it.
Oh, yeah.
The tagline at the end of the Infinity commercial was luxury that lets you feel infinitely you. Now, I get what they were trying to do is, bring in a form of the word infinity, but I kept taking it apart, and I cannot. What does this even mean? Luxury that lets you feel infinitely you. What does feeling infinitely you mean?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think if a person came into that tagline, I might punch them in the throat. I'd have to resist the urge to punch them in the throat. I don't know. There's a lot of automakers that have inane. Another infinity thing that I heard on a podcast is never stop beginning.
Never stop beginning?
Yeah, that's the other infinity tagline. Never stop beginning.
Okay. Well, that I understand, though. I assume that means never stop going back to square one and refiguring it out. And
yeah.
I just feel like they fell in love with that they needed to work some form of the word infinity into the tagline. So they basically just spit this out, and I think to most people would just ignore it. I think just like most taglines, you tend to just ignore them. But I kept being haunted by what feeling infinitely you meant. How could I be any more me than what I normally would be?
What's the tagline of Toyota? I think doesn't Toyota have an inane one? Okay, I looked it up. It's not that inane. It's not as inane as I remember. Let's go places.
Okay.
It's okay. I think a lot of times, honestly, with these Japanese car companies, I think what happens is they come up with this phrase in Japan, and in English it maybe doesn't make a lot of sense, and yet it becomes the global campaign, and the American agencies have to work with it. And they're like, well, I think this is a little vague, and they're like, sorry, it's the global campaign. This is what it is.
Well, it's like what I read when I looked up 2 out of 3 Ain't Bad. Apparently that song, when it was recorded by some Japanese pop band, they changed the lyric to 66% isn't bad. I guess the notion of 2 out of 3 didn't make sense in Japanese, so they converted it to a percentage.
Do you know what Lexus's tagline is?
What?
Experience amazing.
Ah, okay. I feel like Lexus is bending over backwards to become relevant to a younger demographic.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's right. Yeah, they are only olds by Lexus.
Yes.
They're good cars, but it's like Buicks. Only olds by Buick. They've got a huge problem.
Yeah.
They're good cars. But yeah, they're desperate to, appeal to the younger demographic.
So there.
Tom, I'm sure you're aware you're in the advertising business. This is awards season.
Yes.
Lots of agencies entering awards. I learned the other day, do you know how many categories there are at Cannes to enter awards for? Just guess. Categories.
25.
There are something like 2,600 categories.
How can that be? Category. So within each category, there's...
I heard this, and I don't doubt it. I mean, yeah.
I guess in some way, that number just befuddles me. But I guess in some ways, it's not surprising because that's how they make their money, right? Entry fees. So the more things they can come up with, have people enter, I guess the better. But I said 25, and you said 2,600 or whatever the number is. There must be a whole bunch of categories that are so obscure that nobody knows about.
That's what it is. That's right. Yeah, and it goes into a deep dive down the rabbit hole of different, financial B2B, typography, sound.
So you could win typography in financial services of the year, and you could run out of the award saying, I won best in show. Shouting it in the streets.
LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Honored and humbled. Have you ever seen that one?
Yes. It's almost as bad as Thoughts and Prayers.
Yeah, it is. I think no one... This is an I decree.
I decree.
No one shall ever say honored and humbled about any news they have on LinkedIn. I don't care if it's a promotion or a winning an award. If you're honored, that's fine. It's the humbled part I don't really understand. How is that humbling?
Honored and humbled. When you're saying when you win, to react and say
why
honored.
Are you humbled? Yeah, why are you humbled? I get how you're honored.
Well, I guess you're humbled because you're the false modesty of saying, I'm really not as great as you guys think I am.
I'm so humbled. Didn't stop me from posting on LinkedIn.
I'm not quite that humble.
I'm not quite that humble, son. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. So there.
I want to bring things back to our kind of the more everyday life experience. Have you noticed waiters in restaurants? Have you noticed the fact that sometimes there are some waiters who will not under any circumstances write anything down?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
and it seems like half the time,
anxiety.
Yeah, and you ask them. Usually, somebody at the table say, "You getting all this?" But I'm wondering if in waiter circles, if that is seen as some kind of badge of honor, right? If you're seen in the waiter world as a better waiter, if you don't have to ever write anything down. Because I think as a general rule, it seems to be a trend that I see more in upscale restaurants than like if you go into a diner.
Yeah, right. It's also a trend. I think it's a flex that waiters do for large parties. Like I've noticed it with parties of 8 or 10 people. And it's like, wait, like you said, you got that? You got that I wanted Thousand Island on the, and no radishes? You got that? Yeah. On the salad? You got that? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. But as a customer, I mean, it just seems like it's something that people, us sitting at the table, it wouldn't. We don't need that. We don't value it. In fact, we would probably feel better if they were writing it down. Yet waiters, I guess you're right. It's like a form of waiter muscle flexing. I also find, maybe tell me if you agree with this. Predominantly males over females do this. I can't think of an experience where a waitress didn't write the stuff down. I think they're much more sensible, and it's probably the male equivalent of looking yourself in the mirror at the health club as you flex. I mean,
yeah, as you do your shoulder lifts, as you do your bicep curls standing in front of the mirror. Yeah, you know what else waiters say? You ever had a waiter say to you, they come to say their name, "My name is Wayne, and I'll be taking care of you tonight." You get that? And I'm like, I want you to serve me. I don't want you to take care of me. My mom takes care of me. The doctor takes care of me. You could reply to that and say, "Well, that's great. I'm Gary, and I'll be eating tonight."
It's an affect. I guess it's their kind of way to greet you. Although, what's wrong with just saying, "Hi, I'm Gary. Can I get you guys started? Drink order?"
Or I'll be your server.
Yeah.
Although that's obvious. I don't have to tell you that, I don't think. Yeah. I may have mentioned this in the pod, but I had a friend who recently passed away, sadly. But I had a friend who had a great thing in a restaurant when the waiter came up and they'd talk about, specials and so forth, what they liked. My friend would always say, "What's the worst thing on the menu?"
Which I'm sure would absolutely flummox the waiter.
No, it's actually a fascinating question to ask in a restaurant. And here's why: because it reveals who your waiter is. Some waiters will go, "Oh, everything's great. I really can't pick anything," But then some waiters will go, "You do not want to get the lamb shank." And it really is a great test of how honest they are.
Yeah, there's a middle ground. My guess is most of them would take, which is to say, the lamb shank. I don't like lamb shank. Is great. I'm told it's great, but I just don't like lamb shank.
Yeah, but it's interesting because some go right for that. Oh, do not get the sole, filet of sole. Yeah, and then you get the ones who try to equivocate and waffle and I love everything.
Have you ever worked as a waiter in your formative years?
No, I've had many restaurant jobs. I've been a busboy. I've been a dishwasher. I've been but never a waiter. My restaurant jobs are so bad that a waiter was an aspirational goal. Have you?
I worked as a dishwasher for one day in a Chinese restaurant, and what got me, it was really my first job.
It's a terrible job.
It was. And the thing that made it worse for me was that nobody in the restaurant spoke English. So I felt standing over a sink all night washing dishes, and there was really nobody you could even talk to. So I kind of bowed out after that one.
You get that big industrial strength sprayer.
Right? Oh, yeah.
That big hose, and then you open the thing for the dishes, and this huge cloud of steam comes out, just because industrial size, and you spray all the. Yeah, it's terrible.
I just remember what an incredible come down it was. I mean, I got my first job. I have a job. After school, I'm going to this restaurant, and they're going to pay me $3.50 an hour, whatever it was, those days. And just how within about 15 minutes, I was thoroughly depressed and kind of feeling anxious about the whole thing. Am I allowed to quit? How many weeks do I need to do this? What's appropriate?
Oh, yeah.
And I went home that night and I told my parents, and they said, "No, just give your notice and offer up to work 2 more weeks." But then they said, "No, if you're not happy," the restaurant said, "you don't need to come back." So maybe I wasn't as effective a dishwasher as I assumed I would be.
Did they champ you? It's okay, champ. Did they give you the redirect? No, it's okay.
They probably did in Japanese.
We'll send you the check, Ace.
Right, they probably did in Chinese. I said, I think I'd be better suited to be the manager. Is there any way we can work that out?
They said, "You're 16 years old, son." I once had a job when you know what my job was? I went to a hotel. It was a Sheraton, and my job was I'd get there about 4:30 or 5 in the morning, and my dad would take me there. I think this was high school. He would take me there, and from 4, I'd get there at 5. I'd have to leave a newspaper and a cup of coffee on the door of every room. So you pour the coffee, walk around to every room, put the cup of coffee in the newspaper outside the door. And when I was done with that job, which would take a couple hours because it was a big hotel, I then moved mattresses.
What do you mean you moved them?
Different rooms. I don't know why. I
Okay.
can't remember why I did it, but I moved mattresses. I remember that being my job the rest of the day. Like they were changing out mattresses or replacing them, or
That's backbreaking. That's heavy. That's
horrible job.
Heavy stuff.
Well, the coffee was bad too. That was hard. It doesn't sound hard, but it is. 400 doors.
Yeah. So you had what? Did you have like a cart and you had the newspaper stacked at one point? No?
I know. No cart. It didn't make things easy. It was all like manually carrying the newspapers around and the coffee. There were no labor-saving devices involved. This was the Sheraton in East Indianapolis.
And how long was that over a summer you did this job?
Yeah, something like that.
So it wasn't during school time. So you didn't have to go to school right after that.
I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah. All right. My most memorable summer job was I sold shoes at a Florsheim store in Hackensack, New Jersey. Wow. And the skill I developed was being able to instantly tell a woman's shoe size just by glancing at her feet.
That is a great skill.
Thank you. Not very marketable, but it was a good skill.
I'll bet that kind of impressed the ladies.
Well, what they would do is I'd look at somebody's foot and I say, okay, she's a 6.5. And she'd say, can I see this in a 5 and a 5.5? And I'd bring her out the size she asked for, but I'd also bring out the size I knew she was. And more often than not, that was the winning box.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
But
I think a woman might take exception though if you guessed that her feet were larger than they were. Do you think maybe?
No, I had a backup plan for that. I would always say this style tends to run small. Yes.
The magic of Tom Carmine. Never knew that about you, shoe salesman. That's fascinating.
Next time we get together with our wives, I'll glance at Lisa's feet and I'll tell her shoe size right to her face.
Like the guy at the carnival who guesses your weight.
Right. Exactly.
That is quite a parlor trick. Well, on that fascinating note, we'd like to wrap this up. Thank you for listening. I don't think we've thanked our support staff in a while. Jim Furr, art director, John Binder, sound engineer. Thank you for your help. For Tom Karamitis, this is Gary Doyle saying,
So that